Want a simple hack that'll work for almost every objection you'll hear in outreach? Try this method. I call it agree, ask, answer. And it works like this. Say someone says, we shouldn't give up meat. We've been eating it forever. You might be tempted to say something like, actually, there's a bunch of populations in the past who were vegetarian. Or yeah, humans kept slaves for a long time too, and I assume you don't think that's okay. Instead, try this. First, agree. That's true, we have been doing it for a long time. Then ask. Do you think because we've been doing it for a long time, that makes it okay? Like, have there been other times in history where we were doing something for a long time, but it wasn't okay? Then only after you've replied do you answer. So the answer step is basically all the vegan facts you've come to know and love. But if the previous two steps went well, this one might actually be unnecessary. If the person can't think of any examples, then you can supply some, like not allowing women to vote, or enslaving other humans, or colonizing other people's lands, and so on. But try to only answer as a last resort if they can't get there themselves. All right, so what's the rationale for this method? Well, starting off with some sort of agreement does a couple things. One, it allows you to take a breath and calm yourself if you find the response triggering. Two, it lets you find some point of agreement and can at the very least validate their feelings about the topic, even if you think they're factually incorrect. Finding agreement's also important because it makes them realize you're like them in some way. And that helps keep them from dismissing you as some radical weirdo whose view they don't really need to consider.
You and your small and your way.
3, it helps to demonstrate you're actually listening rather than waiting for your turn to talk. All right, so what about ask? So asking a question serves some of the same purposes. First, it again allows you to take a breath before blurting out some clever or snippy response. The sort of response that might break rapport and cause the person to get defensive or shut down.
Because it's you don't eat dog!
Second, it allows you to test their underlying principles, but by having them put forth the cognitive and emotional effort. It also allows them to produce reasons and examples that are most relevant to them. So not only is this going to have them process the information more deeply, but probably also remember it better. This is a big part of Socratic questioning in general. Think about a teacher that just spits facts at you versus one who actually engages your curiosity and asks for your input on a topic. Third, it allows the person to feel heard. So much of our life is reading other people's positions or opinions or facts, or just having other people talk at you rather than with you. So this allows you to forge some genuine human connection in what little time you have. And that also keeps them maximally engaged, since it boosts the time they're thinking and responding. It's hard to zone out while you yourself are making a point, but it's easy to zone out while someone else is. And maybe most importantly, it can highlight misunderstandings that might be lurking beneath the surface, unbeknownst to both of you.
If you could set up the teleport between one place and another, where would that be? Like your bed to Five Guys, or where would you choose?
I'm sorry?
Your teleport, your...
Our bed to Five Guys?
Yeah,
What?
wait, like for me, I would do my bedroom straight to a Five Guys. That's where I
What's a
would.
Five Guys?
It's like a burger place.
Oh!
No, not Five Guys, Jesus!
Now maybe you're saying, okay, but they're definitely gonna say stuff I don't agree with. In fact, most of it I don't agree with. This is 100% true, and this doesn't work for everything. But let's see how we can use this method even if we blatantly disagree. Let's say they say, veganism is expensive, and you know that's not true. You can say something like, yeah, I was worried about that as well, and there's definitely some expensive vegan products. But what are some of the least expensive whole foods in the grocery store? Or maybe they say, well, one person doesn't make a difference. You can say something like, yeah, it can definitely feel like one person doesn't make a difference in today's world. But do you think you really wouldn't make any difference? Or do you think it wouldn't make a difference to that animal? In this way, you're validating or agreeing with their emotional experience without necessarily agreeing with the underlying fact of the matter. Or if they say you can't get all the nutrients you need as a vegan, you can say, yeah, I can see why you'd say that. I thought that for a while myself. But what nutrients do you think aren't possible to get as a vegan? Now in these cases, you'll eventually need to move on to answer, since many people just aren't going to have the requisite knowledge. But just agreeing and asking can often take you farther than you think. For instance, if they say calcium, you can continue to ask, do you think there's any plants that have calcium? Are there any other ways to get calcium? Until you hit a point at which you may have to say, kale, tofu, and beans all have calcium, and so does fortified plant milk, plus you can take a supplement, which is fine, but there's a power in having them work it out themselves. And there's also power in them noticing the disconnect between their knee-jerk reaction of you can't get nutrients like calcium, and then realizing they already knew that wasn't true all along. All right, and just to note, the agree step here is probably better described as validate, but I thought it was cool to have 3 A's for the alliteration.
Allied Atheist Alliance. That way it has 3 A's. That is the logical choice.
Now a couple caveats. Depending on your tone, body language, and general vibe, this has the potential to come off as condescending and at times just as aggressive as a rude, straightforward statement. Okay, so just so I'm clear, you think that just because we've been doing something for a long time, that makes it okay? Do I have that right? So this works best by projecting a non-judgmental vibe. The other thing to be aware of is people going off on tangents. A certain percentage of people will just start rambling, and responding to all their points is going to be impossible, especially if you're asking questions every time. If you run into one of these people, it's important to identify that and strategically and politely interrupt them when necessary to keep the conversation on track. Also, once you've identified someone like this, I'd use the agree and ask strategy sparingly. And I'm not saying use this for every single objection, but I think it's a powerful tool for building rapport, engaging the other person, and giving yourself a chance to cool down if you're feeling triggered. And if you want to see my whole guide to activism and where this idea originally came from, check out this video here. And if you want to help me make this my full-time career, check out the Patreon in the description. And shout out to Ryan O'Neill, Tom Eisenbeis, NetBase News, Monstar, David Yastrzemski, and Maxwell Edison.